Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back to more Warhammer 40k lore. Today we are reaching way back into the vaults for a piece of truly ancient lore that, whilst it hasn't been mentioned in, about 30-odd years, and so one might be tempted to think that this is no longer canon. But hold on there a moment. There is no technical reason why the Chaos androids could not exist in the modern-day 41st millennium, especially considering recent expansions upon the lore. But before we get to that part, first and foremost, what were the Chaos androids? What are the Chaos androids? Well, as you can probably immediately spot, due to their, being skeletons that are robots in space, with giant guns with huge bayonets on them, these were the precursors of today's Necrons, who were themselves predated by at least 2 or 3 different versions of robot skeletons in space. It was an idea that GW clearly really liked, but weren't quite sure on how to implement for the longest time. Hell, even the original full release of the Necrons were eventually rebooted into today's far more Egyptian-themed Necrons. The Chaos androids, however, have absolutely no link to the Necrons, beyond the purely visual, that is, and let's be honest here, a robot that looks like a skeleton is hardly the most crazy off-the-wall idea ever. Instead, the Chaos androids were produced by the Chaos Squats. Yes, evil, chaos-infected space dwarfs. To be their primary infantry force, as the Chaos androids could of course be produced in enormous quantities and be armed with relatively simplistic weapons, basic infantry guns like autoguns or laser guns. Furthermore, the Chaos androids could be powered and operated by esoteric means. So instead of needing to figure out some hyper-powerful and yet also tiny battery for the Chaos androids, along with an extraordinarily complex operating system to allow them to act independently without direct supervision and direction by a Chaos Squat, the Squats decided to simply bind a demon within the android, using the tiny little creature both as a battery and as a guiding intelligence. Obviously, it would be bound by rather severe restrictions that made it so that the intelligence within the android had to obey every order given to it, so as to make sure that it wouldn't simply just turn its autogun upon its master the first chance it got, of course. But still, this was a hell of a lot easier than figuring out a tiny nuclear device and how to mass produce it for power, and then writing the AI required to operate the machine, especially considering the somewhat strange relationship that the 41st millennium has always had with AI. Now, I'm sure a fair few of you are already raising your hands and going, hold on there, Chaos Squats. But there are no Squats anymore. They were nommed by the Necrons eons ago, and then replaced by the significantly inferior League of Wotan. Well, that is true. However, what are the League of Wotan but less charismatic and interesting Squats? And since the League of Wotan are now back, there is no reason to believe that there couldn't be Chaos Wotans out there somewhere, or a corrupted ancestral computer. We know already that Chaos can infect machines via things like scrap code, or simply by possessing the machines themselves. So, why would an ancestral computer be immune to any of this? Furthermore, guess what? The League of Wotan also have robotic servants in the form of the Iron Kin, which are literal robots with literal AI. I know, technically, 40k is sort of like, oh, it's not AI, it's just a hyper-complex algorithm, basically. Yes, that's what AI is. And on a slightly separate note, the League of Votan are heretical as fuck. And there is absolutely no reason at all why the Imperium should accept them. Beyond GW's whoosh, I make it so, plot hole magic, that is. Oh, and as another by-the-by, the League of Votan Ironkins, we also already know that they can be affected by demonic powers too. So, the window is wide open for Chaos androids. And I do wish they'd bring these adorable little things back because, well, one, they look awesome. And in their one and only proper official appearance, before 40k was even really 40k, in Space Crusade, they were also accompanied by giant Terminator-style walking death robots, which would look pretty awesome on the tabletop. And there is every reason why a chaotic faction would like to produce things like these. So, let's begin with the need and uses and advantages of Chaos androids. We know already that the Imperium, back in the golden age of technology, or the Federation more correctly, had also experimented with various forms of automatons, as this is probably what the Men of Iron refers to. And as we've also seen in a Gaunt's Ghost novel, there were standard template constructs machines set up to produce humanoid robots, or androids. The immediate advantages of such technology are, well, obvious for all to see, not just militarily, but on virtually every single solitary level. If you can produce a robot with all the same capabilities and flexibilities of a human, well, you could hand it an autogun and order it to fight your foe, absolutely. And it would probably do a good job of it as well, with all kinds of advanced targeting technology, as well as being, you know, a robot and therefore quite easy to armor. But it could also be used for all kinds of early settlement purposes. If you are the Federation pushing out into the galaxy, settling new worlds, one of the most pressing needs that you are going to face again and again is how to cultivate and maintain your brand new colonies with often a very small number of human beings. Why should people need to go out into the fields and till them or harvest the crops when robots can do the exact same thing? Why would precious humans be required to carry out basic maintenance when a robot with all of the dexterous fingers of a human can do it just the same, etc.? There are countless reasons why you would want to bring along a standard template construct for humanoid robots. The drawbacks, however, are equally obvious. Making a humanoid robot do the countless tasks that humans can do with adequate training is difficult. Then there's the construction process for each and every one. Every android must be absolute hell to produce, with a quantity of fiber-bundled muscles, wiring, and various motive elements inside of it. And then there's the power source. You need something fairly potent and able to run for an extended period of time autonomously without the need to recharge. Which, again, considering the number of moving bits in this thing, is gonna be a tall order. And then it comes to the recharging. Are you going to need to set up a massive nuclear power plant first thing upon arriving on a new world, simply to power all of the robotic servants? Well, I mean, if you could simply land the spaceship, that would actually be fairly simple. But still, making a power source that small, it'd be difficult enough in and of itself. Hell, we are barely capable of making one that lasts for maybe a day's worth of charge today with all of our current technology, and we haven't even begun on the AI, which would require way more power on top of that again. If, however, you are a demon-worshipping dwarf, then a lot of these problems become surprisingly easy to solve, because you've got access to magic. And magic, as we all know, don't have to explain shit. You've got power issues? Well, we've got a small creature that sucks literally infinite power from an alternative dimension. You want to make sure that it can do whatever you tell it to do? Well, guess what? As a bonus to that infinite energy also comes a rudimentary, but nevertheless effective, intelligence. Granted, a somewhat rebellious and peeved intelligence, true, but an intelligent nevertheless. And, as a final bonus, you can tell it to do or not do things by simply painting various symbols around it. Don't want it to disobey orders? There's a rune for that. Want it to kill your enemies? There's a rune for that too. Want it to power its weapon with the hellish flames of a separate dimension? There's a rune for that as well. Ain't magic swell? Yeah, the random tentacles that'll spew forth from the walls and the occasional maniacal murderous rampage the robots will go on given half a chance is unfortunate, but considering all of the bonuses, frankly, it's a pretty cheap price to pay. It does, though, come with some additional drawbacks. See, binding a demon into a metallic body is, well, one, difficult, and two, you're binding a demon into a metallic body. Now, this is where some of the potential lore evolutions come into play. In modern 40k lore, when a demon is bound into something like a defiler, the demon's actually relatively happy with it, as it allows it to exist in the material world and murder a whole bunch of people. Whereas the demon inside of the Chaos android, however, is said to absolutely loathe its imprisonment. And they will, whenever possible, try to misconstrue any orders or instruction given to them in such a way as to act contrary to the orders given. Again, indicating that the demonic entity is not at all cooperating with its creators. Why is this? Well, one potentially intriguing theory is that the demon in question does not possess the Chaos robot, like a defiler might possess the defiler's chassis. Instead, the Chaos android literally has a tiny demon trapped inside of itself. Not possessing the robot, literally a tiny demon in a cage inside of the robot. Now, besides being absolutely adorable, I actually do like this theory for a fair few lore reasons as well. Firstly, it would seem sensible to believe that a large metallic chassis would require a suitably powerful spirit to animate it, as is the case with the Defiler. However, powerful demonic entities are dangerous demonic entities, and more often than not, demonic entities aligned with one of the four primal gods. We do know that the gods themselves, whilst tolerant of demon machines, don't necessarily love their servants being utilized in this way. And usually a warsmith that wishes to produce large quantities of demon engines will require permission, is in essence, to do so. And if they do not get that permission, then the gods may very well move to punish them violently, as was the fate of one Iron Warrior's warpsmith by the name of Washdock Piston Hand, whom, after taking over a massive forge world from the Dark Mechanicus, began producing demon engines on a truly titanic scale. One might think that the Dark Gods would laud his achievements and applaud him, but no. In fact, the mass forced abduction of so many of their minions from the warp actually led them to launch a unified invasion of the Forge world in question. 4 demonic legions, 1 from Tzeentch, 1 from Slaanesh, 1 from Nurgle, and 1 from Khorne. And let me assure you, it is a rare day indeed, where the 4 Chaos Gods choose to not merely tolerate one another, but actively cooperate. Indicating quite clearly that there is definitely a limit to how many of their servants can be, enlisted in this fashion. But the servants of the Great Four are not the only entities in the warp. There are countless trillions of other minor demonic entities in the warp as well. Either creatures that are non-aligned because they are too small and lacking in intelligence to actually be of value to the Great Four, or who are aligned with much, 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 much smaller chaos gods and entities. These creatures would probably not be fit to operate something like a Defiler, but a Chaos Android, especially if all they had to do was basically provide energy and basic rudimentary guidance, well, that sounds a whole lot more realistic. And you can produce as many of these little fiends as you want without pissing off anyone capable of invading you with a legion of demons. This might also go quite some way to explain the reluctance on behalf of the android's occupants. If it was a spirit of Khorne there, basically because Khorne told it to, then okay, very well. It can draw a great deal of power from the simple violence around itself. If it was ordered to be there by Tzeentch, Nurgle, Slaanesh, etc., same deal. But if it's just some minor demonic entity, not tied to any particular emotion, experience, need, or whatever, well, it's just trapped. It can't do anything, it has no free will, and it can't even satisfy whatever esoteric, nonsensical need it might have to feed itself, because it's tied to the direct commands of his operators. I'd be pretty upset too if I was to be locked in a metal box for God only knows how many hundreds, if not thousands of years, with no idea or necessarily hope of ever getting back out again. Yeah, that sounds like ample justification to behave like an asshole whenever possible to me. Occasional mischief aside, however, the ability to produce a theoretically damn near limitless quantity of very tough-to-kill automatons that have enough intelligence to the point where you can put pretty much any weapon you want in their hands and have them be fully operational with nothing more than a tutorial on how to aim, pull the trigger, and reload, is of course an absolutely amazing strength, especially for a theoretical race of chaos squats or votans, long lost on some fringe edge of the galaxy, where they are, right now, building up uncountable legions of chaos androids. It's probably not real, but I can dream, can I not? After all, if we already have to suffer the absolute heresy that is the Leagues of Votan, with their repeated fucking with abnormal machine intelligences and their not at all squattish nature, am I not allowed to dream of chaos dwarves in space? Am I not allowed to dream of armies of silvered mechanical skeletons carrying M2 machine guns, with big two-legged walkers marching at their heels, firing rocket launchers and everything else that were bolted onto them during the Rogue Trader era? Heck, pre-Rogue Trader era. And maybe with the occasional massive flying mechanical bull seen overhead. I think that is ample reason in and of itself to believe that Chaos Androids are still real and still out there somewhere in the great wide galaxy. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you very much for listening, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Have a good day.